Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the channel. And can the Miami Hurricanes pull off the upset this weekend? Recent history would say absolutely not. We have been outscored by the Clemson Tigers, a astounding combined score of 138 to 20. 138 to 20. Now, the only redeeming quality about that is that the closest that the game has been over the last 3 years was last year when we lost 42 to 17. So we went from 0 to 3 to 17. So, hey, you never know. ESPN gave us a 9.3% chance of pulling this out. So, hey, I don't know. But let's let's get serious, though. Clemson is a very formidable opponent. I don't have to sit here and wax poetically about what they've been able to do for the last decade. We know, right? They've been a standard barrier for the ACC since they were able to finally topple Florida State. They are the dynasty that no one expected to actually become a dynasty, right? But I just want to talk about a few things, right? There's a theory going on, right? It's a theory, right? It's going to be tested this Saturday, though. You best believe it's going to be tested. But I do think there are a couple of qualities, a couple small victories that I think we have shown over the year, even though we haven't gotten the necessary victories in the big win column. But there are some small victories that I do think that could have our team somewhat prepared for what it is that we're about to engage in, right? So, said theory is that we've played better against teams on the road, right? And that's true, right? But also the teams on the road, and this is pre-last Saturday, I think those teams from a win-loss perspective were a mind-boggling 12 and 28. I think that's the calculation I came up with. Whereas from our home side, I think they were like 35 and 22 or 35 and 24 or something of that particular nature, win-loss column, right? So that theory will actually be tested. But I do think there are some again, redeeming qualities from said theory that, again, are small victories. One of them being that we've already played in a hostile environment, right? The 12th man is called the 12th man for a reason, right? Obviously, Clemson has what they do. You know, it gets pretty raucous up there. But I think we've already played in that particular environment. We played extremely well in that environment. I think that was one of our most least penalized games. We didn't have a lot of false starts, didn't have a lot of ineligible receivers down the field or any of those particular different things like that. Obviously, we were a lot healthier that game, right? We were a lot healthier. So the actual makeup of the offense is somewhat different going to Clemson, right? We are without a few pieces, and we have a few pieces that are inserted that did not participate in that game. But I do think just that overall experience of being in such a hostile environment will pay dividends for us. Another small victory, right? I'm going to kind of go off on to somewhat of a little tangent, a mini tangent here, right? So one of the things that I've seen for, you know, the duration of me being a Miami Hurricane fan, at least being intricately involved in forum type discussions and stuff, is that locals do not attend Miami Hurricane football games unless the team is winning, right? For a myriad of different reasons, right? Some people say, hey, it's just too much to do in Miami. On Saturdays, the youth football scene is really big. And one of the more interesting entries in this is just the simple fact that a lot of people who live in Miami just did not attend the school. They went to cheaper alternatives, right? You have some people that went to Florida State, some people that went to Florida, some people that went to UCF, went to FIU, went to USF, went to FAU, right? So even though they are residing here in Miami, they are not changing their allegiance from the school that was, and being real, gave them an opportunity to provide for themselves as well as their family. And so they're not about to switch allegiances just because from a historical standpoint, I guess it depends on what history that you're looking at and what criteria you're looking at. But we're not going to switch allegiance to historically the best modern day, and I got to put emphasis on modern day, football team in the state of Florida, which is the Miami Hurricanes, right? But going back to preseason, when TVD sat down I don't know if it was via Zoom or it was actual phone call. And some people misconstrued what he said when he was talking about what people thought he was taking a shot at the home field advantage or lack thereof an advantage that we have at Hard Rock Stadium. And I looked at it from this particular vantage point. I looked at it because his words were he enjoys playing in front of away crowds, right? Because he likes to quiet the home crowd down, right? But I looked at it from this particular aspect, and I think some people should do the same as well, is all of the Miami Hurricane fans are not centrally located in South Florida, much less Miami. And I think that there are a lot of fans that are going right. There are a lot of fans in that I-95 corridor up there, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, West Virginia, on up to Maryland and things of that particular nature. And I think one of the knocks or one of the insults that some Cane fans say about the Gators and the Seminoles is that, hey, of course you're going to have a sold-out arena. There's nothing else to do there. And the same can be said for the rest of the ACC teams that we play, because Miami is the only metropolitan area, really. I mean, obviously, you have, but that's a Big 12 team. I mean, Big Ten team. I'm about to say Maryland, but Maryland's a big team. But that is the biggest area, right? And so a lot of these particular different places, most notably Clemson, Durham, Chapel Hill, these are particular places where, yeah, there's probably not a lot to do from a city person's perspective. I'm from a small town, and there are a lot of stuff to do in small towns if that's what you're interested in doing. Obviously, a person from the city might not find what we do as interesting as compelling as what it is they do from a city standpoint. So I think one of the reasons that could factor into why we have also looked a little bit better on the road is just simply we've had some fans, probably on average, maybe more Cane fans have showed up to our away games than to our home games, right? And I would probably venture to say maybe if someone were able to do a study about wins and losses versus home and away since the destruction of the Orange Bowl, I would not be surprised if we had a better win-loss, record on the road, and the fandom showing up in these other places throughout the ACC have played a role. Now, let's get back to the game, right? I know some people are trying to compare this and say, man, maybe this could be a game like when Ja'Cory and them were here and played on that particular level. And I honestly don't know, right? I honestly don't know. This season has been ripe with upsets from teams that looked dead in the water, and they were able to come out and play well. Nobody expected at one point in time Illinois was a undefeated team, and LSU recently upset Alabama, right? And we know that there's been a lot of depletion of talent from that particular program. I don't think anyone expected Florida State to do what they did to us, 2 weeks ago. But, hey, it happens. So I do think that this game could be different, right? I don't see Clemson having what they've had in the previous matchups, which is a quarterback that was just so good, right? I wouldn't put Kelly Bryant in that particular scenario, but I do think Kelly Bryant is actually better than DJU. I think Kelly Bryant was aided by a great defense that they had, so it was a lot easier for him to kind of do what it is that they wanted to do with him, which was, kind of run the ball, limit the pass, and somewhat run the ball. Now, our run defense got tested and failed against Florida State. And by the people that utilize that theory of, well, this team beat this team by this much, and then this team turned around and beat us by this much, so that means that the team that beat this team, and just, so based on that, Clemson is supposed to beat us by at least 60 or 70 points, based on the loss that we suffered from Florida State, and then based on how badly they beat Florida State, right? But I will say another small victory that I do think could play maybe some dividends in this particular game is that, well, DJU has not been what they expected DJU to be for the second consecutive year, right? And one of the things that I liked about what we were able to do last week on defense, aside from making sure we playing assignment football, is taking advantage of a bad quarterback. It is something that I was so proud to see us do. And I'm not going to say DJU is as bad as the quarterbacks that we played at Georgia Tech, or he's as bad as Brennan Armstrong looked this year, but I do think that he is a bad quarterback. Now, obviously, we got to know that they're going to run a counter. We also got to know that they're going to try to run QB power. We have to know those particular different things, right? I don't know how well they do on the outside because, as I've said in the past, I do not watch other ACC games because I just cannot bring myself to watch some of this this sport. I get enough of it watching our game, right? But again, ESPN gave us a 9.3% chance to win, so that's good enough for me, and that's good enough for me to think that you do have to play the game. There are some things that can happen in a football game where things could go your way. You know, we could have a situation where we could force 2 or 3 fumbles on the plus side of the field and allow for Jakari and our offense to work in a short yardage situation and put pressure on that Clemson defense, right? We could have a situation where Akeem Mesidor is in a favorable matchup on the outside. We could have a situation where Leonard Taylor is on a favorable matchup in this particular situation. Young Wesley Basaint could be a person that we could look at and say when, you know, they try to get Shipley involved in the passing game, we make him put West out there on him, you know, because, again, the film that they may be looking at from earlier this year, we look a little bit different on defense right now, right? You know, I'm not one of those people that try to anoint freshmen and things like that. But like I said, I like some of the things that I saw Wesley Basaint do last week. Most notably, IDing the running back out of the backfield, right? That's something that's been on our Achilles heel, right? So I think if Clemson does try to sneak Shipley out of the backfield, I do think that if Wesley's in the game, he's going to ID that, right? He's a very high IQ player. I can see that from the limited amount of snaps that I've watched him play, right? Now, again, I'm not trying to be a homer here, but I'm not going to be the doom and gloom and say, hey, they're going to boat race us, because I do think there are some small victories that we have been able to get this year. There's not a lot of them. There's not a lot of big victories, but I do think there's some small victories that we do have to look at and say that, man, maybe if we're able to put some things together, we could make the game interesting. I'm not predicting a victory. I'm not predicting an upset. I'm just saying we should be able to make this game interesting. But on the other hand, it could be a repeat of 2015. So, I don't know. I wonder what the odds were back in 2015, and then maybe I could more properly gauge what we could possibly see. But I'm looking forward to a good game, man. It's going to be cold up there. I know our Cane fans are going to show up and show out. You know, don't know how long they're going to be able to show up and show out. But I just want to see our guys go up there and lay it out on the field. I know it's been a lot of internal things that these guys have to deal with, and I feel like the only way that you can actually let this out is come out and take your biggest swing and hope for the best, right? So as always, it's always about the U. Even if we ain't got but a 9.3% chance to win the game, gotta love it.